You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So let's be friends. Today, we're going to be talking about how we watch the races, whether you would rather be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond, and what are our must-watch or must-attend F1 venues. Joining me in the shed is the prodigal son of Missed Apex Podcast, Chris Stevens. Oh, where have you been, Christopher? You are in danger of becoming the third best Chris on the podcast.
I know. It is a shame, but I feel like my work away from Missed Apex will keep me as the number one Chris, because I've been off and about and all sorts of wonderful places, Spanners.
Well, we've obviously had a lot of content from Watkins Glen with Christina Lee Mace. We had Christian Pedersen with that blinking poem that caused so much of a stir. Do you know how many emails I've had about that poem?
12.
A lot. And you people out there, you actually liked it and you're encouraging that kind of thing. No, stop encouraging Christian. And Chris Catman-Turner is going to be on next week, as we're going to actually deep dive into the career of Nico Rosberg, who he claims is the greatest ever one-time champion. So we might fall out.
Yeah, I think that is a real risk, as it often is with our little shed show.
Yeah, well, so you could after all of that, still end up being top two Chris's. So
top two?
Top two. But
top two?
We're going to make...
There's no point being a Perez.
We're going to make a new friend today as well. So we've reached into the realms of TikTok and Instagram, and I've really enjoyed the content of our new friend, Cadence Breaking. Possibly not a legal name, but Cadence, thank you for joining us in the shed.
Hello, Spanners and everyone on Missed Apex. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. And thank you for having me on today. I'm thrilled.
No, that's fine. Look, honestly, I've been looking at your content on TikTok, and there's so much energy and originality, but you do a lot of great content and questions. And in fact, I think we're going to lean on you straight away for a question you asked on your TikTok about what you would rather be in the F1 sphere.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's get into this one. It's
All right.
Bit of a controversial one. Right. So a question I think a lot of us F1 fans think about or wonder when we watch the sport is, would we rather be a teammate to, if we were an F1 driver, of course, if we would rather be a teammate to a generational talent, but drive in a championship winning team, but know that we aren't really ever going to be able to beat them.
So there's some very specific examples. So obviously the Perez news. So we're basically talking Bottas Perez here, aren't we, to start with?
Yeah, I think those would be great current examples of what we've seen in recent history there for sure. And then the alternative to that is, would you be into driving in a midfield team, but knowing that you will always beat your teammate? So everyone sees you as that midfield king.
That's such an interesting question. So I'm glad we're going down this route. So obviously it starts off with the news that Sergio Perez was rumored to, or that there was a rumor. I'll be careful here, because Uncle Joe didn't say that he thinks, Joe Saywood didn't say he thinks Perez was going to announce his retirement in the Mexican Grand Prix. He said there was a rumor going round, and Perez responded to that rumor by quoting Wolf of Wall Street and saying, "I'm not going anywhere."
Can I just, what a ball away of shutting that down?
Yeah, just a full on tweet just going, "Nope, I'm not going anywhere." But that could
such a great quote.
That could just mean he's not going anywhere at the Mexican Grand Prix though, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be for now.
Yeah.
It could be at the end of the season. Maybe before. Who knows?
But that isn't the subject of the question. I think it's, if we put ourselves in the mindset of an F1 driver, where would you reputationally want to be at any given time? So we have seen some midfield heroes. So Alex Albon has looked amazing for the last couple of years. He has had nothing but unadulterated praise for, he's doing wonders in that Williams. And then you look at Perez and Bottas, whose reputations got hammered into the ground against generational talent. It's a tricky one, Chris. Put your F1 career head on. Where are you going?
For me, this is not difficult because it comes down to your reputation as a driver. And for me, I would rather be the big fish in the small pond, as you put it at the start of the show. I'd rather be in that midfield team that's like looking like the hero, constantly smashing my teammate, be really highly regarded, and just someone they're like, oh man, if he was given, the right car, he'd be doing wonders. And do you know what? The prime example of this is Sergio Perez, because he looked like a king in that Racing Point, Force India,
looked like the king
whatever
he
it was.
Looked like the king he is. Thank you.
And then, but since going to Red Bull, he's looked nothing like the sort. And I think we would probably think Albon was mega had he not done his short stint at Red Bull either.
Yeah, that's a good point, Cadence. We've got several examples of the little fish in the big pond, if you like, where it hasn't worked out. Bottas, Perez, Gasly, Albon, Ricciardo to some extent as well. What would you choose in your potential F1 career? Should we let Chris argue the Ricciardo one first?
I'm just saying he arrived at Red Bull and beat a 4-time world champion. So
who didn't care and reputedly had performance clauses he was trying to activate.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, Cadence.
I think the argument for coming in on the other side and saying that, I would want to be a second driver, maybe not a second driver, but just not a dominating driver in a championship winning car, is that you will always get to say, I drove up against, this person. And I know for a fact that, I didn't beat them regularly, but I was enough to be there, maybe outqualify them every once in a while, snag the odd race win. And although I think amongst fans, and if you were a driver, you want that World Drivers' Championship. If you're winning a World Constructors title, it's still a world title.
Ooh. So is Mark Webber a world champion? Is that what we're saying? Does that count?
You could make the argument that he is a world champion. He's not a world championship driver, but he was in a world championship team. So I wouldn't call him a world champion, but...
He's not going to put that in his Instagram bio, though, is he?
Ooh, valid argument.
That is the metric that we will use for this.
So actually what you found, I think, with Formula One drivers who end up against those generational talents, and I can add Eddie Irvine to that list, is they end up looking back and talking about that career as if, hey, look, I wasn't the world champion guy. I wasn't that generational talent. But look, I was you're judging me up against the very best. So it's up to them to build up the legend of the driver. So if you speak to Eddie Irvine, Schumacher was literally a god in an F1 car. He would say things like, okay, we'd get to testing and you could replace Michael Schumacher's front wing with a banana and he'd go 2/10 quicker and it's impossible. And he can drive around problems, and he'll go on endlessly about it. Rosberg is deploying that same tactic now as a pundit, constantly talks about how incredible Lewis Hamilton is. Bottas does that same thing. Now, you're not going to generally find F1 drivers heaping that amount of praise on other drivers unless it does them some specific purpose. And, Bottas saying about, he's ruthlessly consistent is the thing he says with Hamilton. So I think that's what you find a lot of times, Chris, is the drivers go into that mode once they know they weren't going to be the one to be there and to take those championships. They change tack and they sail into the, judge me compared to this godlike figure.
I think it comes after a moment of acceptance, though, doesn't it? Like usually when they have been let go from the team. So, I don't think Bottas would necessarily have been saying those things while he was at Mercedes, but as soon as he was at Sauber, saying, the thing about Lewis. And the thing is, I can talk about all this extra stuff about Lewis now because I'm not part of the team anymore. So I don't care if I accidentally spill a secret or something,
Yeah, so I don't know. I think that this is coming out, Cadence, as being the definitely the more difficult option. But what we're thinking about is before you get to that point, if you're faced with that choice, with the red pill or the blue pill, what do you do at first? Maybe it depends on the stage of career you're at.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to consider, because if you were in Formula One and you started out in that midfield, even if you're not starting out, even if you've been the midfield king in a Perez situation for a very long chunk of your career, you still could work your way up to a top team and then get the first option treatment, you know?
But I think once you've been found out in a top team, that's it. You don't get a second chance.
That is true, unless your name is well, I was going to say Daniel Ricciardo, but he did not get a second chance in a top team.
Well, he got a third and a fourth and a fifth chance in a midfield team. At least he got more chances than he gave anyone else, and he's for some reason getting fewer than Perez.
The chances he got though was okay. So his first chance at Red Bull comes away from that. The Renault chance was supposed to be with a works team, because do you remember at that time everyone was still buying into the fact that there was just this 5-year plan with Renault, and then they were, because Renault's a force in Formula One, right? It's a massive name. It's a championship
as an
name.
Engine provider, especially. Yeah,
but why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they go and join the top three fighting for titles? And then so that kind of feels like he did get a chance at what should have been a top team, and then it's unlucky with McLaren. He got a chance with McLaren in a big dip, but McLaren are a top team now, and they were a top team.
I wouldn't call it a big dip. It was during that weird wavery period where they were sort of trying to find themselves, and you know they did score podiums in that time, and he won a race.
Yeah, you trying to describe that as like their year out from university?
That was the gap
year.
Yeah.
Just
they went to go and
around
hike
Vietnam.
Hike up a mountain, go and eat some Asian food, and just live amongst the locals for a little bit.
It was a long dip, Chris. It was 2013. The dip started and then disappeared in the hybrid era, and then it's only really been the last couple of years that they've climbed out. So that is a long gap year. That's a gap decade. But you are right in general, which is the shine gets taken off a driver's reputation if they go and get a thumping at a big team. Here's the question then, Cadence. Would top teams now consider Alex Albon, assuming he overcomes Colapinto? I suppose he would now have to go and beat Sainz to be considered again at the top teams, which would disprove our thesis.
I think he was being looked at a decent amount up until maybe the midway in the season. And I think when it was announced that Sainz was indeed going to Williams, I think that probably, if he was able to consistently be above and beyond Sainz, he would definitely be getting looked at by top teams, I think. But maybe on the other hand, not, because there are a lot of young drivers that top teams seem to be looking at. But with Colapinto coming in and being neck and neck, essentially, for as close as you can be, for jumping straight into an F1 car mid-season at some tricky tracks, pardon me, it's definitely taken this whole, Albon should be in a top car. It's quieted that a little bit, I think.
By the way, don't be too Canadian. If we had to say pardon me after every time we misspoke, we would just be constantly saying pardon me. Chris?
Especially if you were Northern. And there goes 25% of our viewership. I think as well that when it's funny with the whole Antonelli situation we have now, where, you know, he's been credited on his merit in junior formula, which usually no one really cares about, but he's been so embedded in the team since day one. And of course, there was that rumor that Albon was being evaluated by Mercedes as a potential Lewis Hamilton replacement, which I never bought into. How are you going to... Yes, Lewis Hamilton's replacement, Alexander Albon. No, that's not a headline.
No.
At all, right? So it does ebb and flow, and it is... I don't know, it is weird. I still think I'd rather just be the reputational guy. Where everyone would say that guy could have won races if he was given the right machinery.
I know I use too many boxing analogies, but you don't throw your young prospect in straight against Mike Tyson. You want to build up a little bit, bring up the match fitness, get a bit of a buzz going so that you'll get a big purse when you finally do get that fight. So if it depends on how good you think you are as a driver. So Lewis Hamilton comes in at McLaren, at a top team, in a race-winning car, straight against Fernando Alonso, and goes in and puts manners on Alonso. And you go, well, that's the maximum reputation that you can do. No getting lost in the midfield, like, for example, George Russell. So George Russell was your typical big fish in a little pond. And did his reputation really get much of a boost? He was in favour with Mercedes, but was there a buzz around him? Were the fans, apart from all the Mr. Saturday stuff, Cadence?
Yeah.
I think Russell's reputation in the Williams was much greater, or at least I think he was more highly regarded amongst fans in the Williams than he is in the Mercedes. And I say this as a Russell fan.
Oh,
I noticed
you should have declared that at the door.
Oops, sorry. I should have worn a name tag. But like with Russell, I think everyone was so excited to see him go up against Hamilton, saying, he's going to really show him who's boss. Or at least I think that was maybe not the most popular consensus, but it was, some people really believed that. And although with the car being not a top car, we haven't been able to really see that proper comparison. His stock, I believe, has fallen quite a fair bit.
I agree. And I think the stock might have fallen more had he not been Lewis Hamilton's teammate, because there's a lot of anyone but Lewis people still out there. So there's a lot of people gunning for Russell simply by the fact that where they just want him to beat Lewis Hamilton. But he's definitely, if you see, the race pace and the stints and stuff, you kind of go, oh, it's not this dominating Hamilton that people wanted to see. And if you look at Mercedes' attitude to getting Antonelli in and still courting Max Verstappen, that's incredibly worrying for George Russell. So you kind of go, right, well, do I back myself to be brilliant? And I think every single F1 driver goes in thinking they're going to be brilliant because they're all the guy that was winning everything in the junior series, aren't they? So Jenson Button said to me, do you remember when I spoke to Jenson Button? It was on the show. You
never mention it.
Did I not explain when I spoke to world champion Jenson Button, not former world champion.
And
world champion Jenson Button.
And I agree with Jenson on this.
That you remain champion?
100%. It's not like boxing where you get given a title and it's the only one. He's still got that trophy. He is the 2009 champion.
And I'm not taking away his championship. I just didn't think that former champion was a sign of disrespect.
Sounds like you want to.
Didn't think of it as a disrespectful thing. He'd obviously been told that before, though.
I know you need to learn some etiquette with racing drive. I'm going to sit you down. I'm going to give you a lesson.
In my defense, I know that's not a weekly thing for me, is it? Sitting down with F1 world champions. Anyway, he was talking about Kevin Magnussen and he's saying, Kevin Magnussen was really surprised because he thought he'd come in and just dominate it and boss it. So they all go in, I think, thinking, I'm just going to take a shot at it.
But this is the attitude of young drivers, isn't it? And it's kind of an attitude they have to have, because the funny thing about, take like Lando Norris, for example, who won so much. And do you know what? Throw Antonelli into this as well, because Antonelli needs to learn what not winning is like. Because since he started car racing, he hasn't lost anything. And Lando Norris hadn't lost anything until he reached F2, where he narrowly missed the F2 title. You need to have that reality check, especially because in Formula One, even if you're in a Hamilton or an Antonelli situation where you are likely to be given a race-winning car from day one, it just isn't going to happen from day one. And you have to learn how to not win and how to persevere, because you learn so much more from the difficult days than you do from the good ones. And if you've only had good days up until that point, you've got a lot to learn. I
think there's a lot of drivers who have got stuck in the midfield, though, who never got the Perez opportunity. So there's a world where Perez doesn't end up at Red Bull. And Hulkenberg, yeah, and his reputation is fantastic.
And he should have been in the McLaren in 2013. I think that is probably something that, was it Whitmarsh at the time who was basically running McLaren? Probably looks back on that decision and goes,
because Perez went there instead.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember. See, everyone speaks negatively of that. I don't remember Perez being particularly bad against Button.
I know the car wasn't great, but he wasn't great. He got himself into a lot of scrape.
I'm fed up of all these shows turning into me defending Perez. Like, I just feel like it's not...
The thing is, I remember they said, we can, with data prove he's consistently 2/10 slower than Jenson. And Jenson wasn't, some qualifying mastermind. Qualifying was famously his weaker aspect. He was always in the races where he'd be king, and supposedly this is what Perez was great with as well. And so even when they fired him for Magnussen, they found him the seat at Force India because they felt guilty about it. Like, oh, you know, we kind of made the wrong decision. We're like, better find him a home somewhere and accidentally put him in a better car for next year.
Little bit of a semi off topic segue here.
We do that here. That tracks.
Perfect. So a question about Perez's reputation. Do you think he would have been better off never going to Red Bull? Like, I know he was theoretically out of the seat, but do you think if he went to Williams and if he took Albon's route?
Do you know what? I think of this in the same way I think about Michael Schumacher's return to Formula One. And it is the mantra of always leave them wanting more.
So Schumacher going back to Mercedes, like, he didn't do particularly badly, but he didn't go there and just dominate. And he didn't
the thing is, the car wasn't, there, was it, in those early years?
But then you go, okay, I mean, I was going to say he was really old, but he's younger than I am now. I'm like, oh, no. How am I older than returning Schumacher? Wasn't he like 43 when he came back?
I think he was 43 when he retired the second time.
Oh, no. Where did it all go? But so he came back, and it took because he left as an absolute god, and it did take the shine off it a little bit, because you go, well, Rosberg looked like the quicker driver in a lot of circumstances, and then Rosberg's race pace against Hamilton. That's how our F1 fan brains work, isn't it? Well, he lost to that guy, and that person lost to that guy, and you do a big graph and a big chain. So,
except it's never that simple, is it, Spanners?
No, but that's a good starting point.
It is. No, I've done the same thing, but there's always little caveats.
There is caveats, but I think that if you go, this driver beat that driver, who then beat that driver, I think if you do that, I think you're probably going to be on the right path more often than not. So it's a good starting point. Just don't rely on it. But yeah, so the question is, if Perez goes to Williams, he's a hero now, because he'll have been there, and there was an assumption with Williams that it was a really back of the grid car, that it was going nowhere, that it wasn't developing. And then you put him in against, I think it would have been Latifi at the time, and he would have looked absolutely fantastic. I'm sure he would have seen off Sargent as well, and they'd still be talking about him getting his shot. And how ironic would it be then if he replaced whoever was getting kicked out of Red Bull next year, and a 34-year-old Perez is finally getting a shot in that top Red Bull. Yeah, so I don't know. You can get stuck in the midfield, and I think the drivers that go into midfield teams, look at Ocon, perhaps, and he's scrapping, and you get put in with, also talented journeyman drivers around you that you can't quite get on top of and dominate, and you get stuck in that bubble forever. Do you want that career, or do you want the short and sharp, getting your shot and kind of having the reputational damage go? Because if you're Hulkenberg, your life isn't terrible. You look like a Disney prince. You've been racing for a decade. Like, he's not going home crying.
So, Spanners, the problem is I'm going to add another level to this and say that I would rather be in a top tier Le Mans team and winning Le Mans than being at a back of the grid Formula One.
Why are we getting agreement as well from Canada over here? What's going on? No,
because
what are you on
Canada
about?
Respects sports car racing.
I am sorry, audience. I did not realise we were getting a second Canadian in. I know that breaks quota, so we will have to talk about that offline. No, obviously F1's the pinnacle. No one is going to swap a midfield F1 drive for a top WEC drive. I don't think there's a single driver in history that would do that.
There are plenty of young drivers who do that.
Cadence.
I think amongst the general public, if you say, even though F1 still isn't super widely well known, it's a lot more well known now than it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So if you said, oh, this guy is a midfield F1 driver, people are still going to think that's fantastic. But in the world of motorsport, I think with the more popularity that motorsport gains, the more that people are looking at other series and endurance,
wasn't slating WEC.
And going, oh no, of course. But really saying these guys are, just because they're not in F1, they're not it doesn't mean that they're not phenomenal talents. And it would be amazing to be winning in a series like that 24/7.
And of course it would be. And I can feel Alex Brundle's, like his what do you call it? Like he's sensing a disturbance in the force right now because his
spidey senses are tingling.
He's had a go at us loads. Well, me specifically for being far too F1 centric. Of course, going and winning WEC is brilliant and valuable. But Chris, name me a driver that has voluntarily given up the chance to be an F1 to go and take a top WEC driver or top Indy driver.
I will. The number of young drivers I speak to in the paddocks that I visit around the world will openly tell you that no, I didn't want to spend 3 million.
That's not
on
the
this
question.
F3.
That's not the question. That's not the question. The question was who had an F1 seat available to them and went, no, I'm going in a hypercar. No, I'm going to LMP2. It's never happened.
Well, now you're racking my brain a little bit.
Okay. Do you know what? And I think it's unfair to put people on the spot like that. So if you can come back to me with an example, then I will yield that point. But
the problem is there are so few seats in F1, whereas there are loads in sports car racing. When you think that there
3 drivers per car.
40. So let's round up 45 cars in an average WEC race, each of them with 3 drivers. That's a lot of availability.
Can't believe you've turned this into sports car chat. Unbelievable. Okay.
That's what I am, a sports car racing guy. Now, do you know I haven't even watched the last 2 Grand Prix?
Well, how are you on an F1 pod then?
Because I was away. I was commentating on other series.
Okay, right.
I forgot to record them.
I'm going to send the message out to the Chrisiverse in Missed Apex. Christina Mace, you're bumped up. And Catman, you're now 2. Christian Pedersen, you are still on the naughty step for that poem. So you might hold on to 3. So let's all pick. I'm going for glory. I'm going for win or bin. I'm taking that seat because even though you framed it as I will end up being the number 2 driver to the generational talent, I reject that reality and I replace it with my own reality that I will in fact overcome and beat that generational talent. So thank you. I will have the quote unquote number 2 seat. Ha! Little do they know, I will go through and dominate. Chris?
Well, yeah, unless I'm Oscar Piastri, then I'll take the midfield seat. Thank you.
Such a loser.
Or if there's a Le Mans seat going, I'll have that.
Unbelievable. And Cadence, and it was your question. What's your conclusion? What do you take?
I would go to the top team. And, maybe I never win a world title. Hey, if I'm driving an F1 car, I'll take it. But I think you still have the opportunity to be pushed further as a driver. So the personal satisfaction is there.
Okay, so big, heavy caveat that I wouldn't actually drive a Formula 1 car. That seems super, super scary. But fantastic question. Now let's go on to how we'd watch the race. Okay, so apologies for not digging into the mailbag and finding specific people that have asked this question. And I'm not just doing the normal YouTube influencer thing of going, people have been asking me. No, genuinely, we have had loads and loads of emails saying, what is your pre-race routine? How do you watch the race? And actually, this is a subject that people are very emotive about. So I just put a tweet out about it as well. And we've got loads of answers from our audience about what you do when it comes to watching the race. And so, of course, Chris can't answer because he hasn't been watching any races. So you're pretty useless in this.
I watch races when the rare occasion where I get to watch them live.
But the problem is we're in a different world. So for us, it's always been like an afternoon, maybe even a pub sport, maybe even a beer sport. But where are you located in the world, Cadence?
I live in Western Canada, so for me, most races are on at about 6 a.m.
Oh my, 6.
Oh, that's awful.
So for us, we get the Australian Grand Prix, which actually recently has been getting earlier and earlier, hasn't it? So it's now, I think it was 4 a.m. for us last year. But that is a complete novelty. Like we have a couple of races. Also, Vegas is very early for us. It's 6 a.m. start. So we are spoiled in Europe. We don't have that. It amazes me that there's people out there in Canada. The thing is, do you tend to get up and watch it live? Or do you ever go, it's a little early, let's do the highlights?
I'm a very annoying person. And I wake up between 4:30 and 5 most days.
Oh, she's
So
one
for
of those.
me, a 6 a.m.
What?
start is no worries. The issue is when races start at 9 p.m. or later, because I'm ready to go to bed.
Sorry, hang on. I have to get into. What are you getting up at 4:34?
It's just life, man.
Just life, man.
I know, but I'm
Gotta watch
just
that
about,
sunrise.
I'm normally just about getting to bed when we say. I
Well,
like working through the night. That's when I tend
What
to.
I want to know is, right, all the youngsters, right, you know, the Gen Zers with their aura points and stuff like that, when they go out on a Saturday night, then, you know, out to the club until...
They don't go out anymore. They don't go out
Two
anymore.
in the morning. No, yeah, you're right. None of them are going
And
out to clubs
also,
anymore.
let's not make assumptions on anyone's generation here. Because, do you know what I mean? I don't look
No,
like...
this is a
I'm a
generic
Gen Z.
thing.
You're a Gen Z? Oh, my goodness.
I am a Gen Z.
Okay, well, let's play the game that always upsets people with Antonio. What year were you born in?
1999.
That's horrendous. Oh, no, that's you're 25. That's not Gen
Yeah.
Z. You're a
It
millennial.
is Gen Z
You're
Spanners.
a millennial.
I
You
am
wear your
Gen
socks
Z.
really high, probably.
Spanners.
Is it? I don't know the generations.
Gen Z. I was born on the cusp.
Really?
I'm a zillennial.
I think I'm a millennial as well, by the way. Pretty sure. No more questions. Let's not talk about this anymore. Okay,
Anyway,
so
I just want to know why that if they're staying out late on a Saturday night, how do they wake up at 6 a.m. for the races? All I wanted to know.
they don't go out. They don't go out. They're dull. They've got apps. They're fine.
They are boring. Yeah.
But when it comes to watching it live, like I have to watch it live. If I can't watch the race live, even before doing content creation, it's a disaster. And it didn't used to be so bad because A, I didn't used to have terrible children. I made bad life choices. And B, it used to be a lot less races. So, you know, you're talking 16 races a year. That's a red letter day in the calendar. And so, you know, even when it was like 18, 19 races, when the kids were very little, you get no time as a parent and no choice as a father, generally. So, but it would be the Sunday, it would be special for those few hours. I could genuinely just say, right, leave me alone. Daddy doesn't love you. The race cars are on. I will love you again when the race cars start again. And it became something that was fenced off. And so we literally we will organise family social events around, oh, I've heard her on the phone. Oh, no, we can't do that. That's the Austin Grand Prix because it's in the calendar as the thing. So it's as the races get more and more and as they try and introduce sprint races, I find the credit I have in my life to apply for, nothing can get organised over that time is getting less and less to the point where, no, I can't always sit down and watch qualifying. Like it can't be appointment viewing because there's so many other days now marked out in the calendar.
Yeah, this is very true. It has started overtaking our lives a little too much, especially since we decided to start podcasting about it as well. That was maybe a wrong call.
It's been 10 years to undo that decision, and we kept failing to correct it.
Yeah, but no, I am very much the only reason I miss Grand Prix is because I am on site at other events doing a job. And I will not look at anything because I literally don't have time to. Usually it will be a Sunday evening thing. We'll have wrapped up at the track. We'll be down in the bar in the hotel and be like, oh, so-and-so won the...
Even though I am a morning person and enjoy, weekend for races, my brother, who I got into F1 2 or 3 years ago, is the complete opposite. But it is the one thing that he will always make sure if he is up late the night before, it doesn't matter. He is taking his 2-hour nap and then driving over here to watch the race. And then he will go to sleep directly after.
So he'll come over,
and reset.
watch the F1 and then crash.
Exactly.
I had done this on an Australian Grand Prix weekend. I went to a Royal Blood concert on a Friday night. Remember, anybody who was listening to music in 2014 might remember them. Anyway, they were big for like a year.
Great story, Chris.
Yeah, no, but I went to a Royal Blood concert on the Friday night, got back at, I don't know, maybe 3 a.m. from Brixton, from the O2 Academy in Brixton.
Chris, where is this going?
To put the qualifying on, because it was on at like 4 a.m. or something ridiculous.
Oh, right, yeah.
I fell asleep. And it was the year that it got rained off as well. So I put myself through hell for nothing.
When it was, so the Australian Grand Prix would say it's a 6 o'clock start. when there was less races, I would really want to absorb every moment of practice as well. So I would sometimes set an alarm for the middle of the night, just like bleary eye, just get the phone on, and then go back to sleep afterwards. Definitely that's not a thing now, just because the sheer amount of F1 content. So I don't like that mode now, though. If I don't wake up in time for the start of the Grand Prix and I have to say watch it on my phone, I miss so much, because now it's not enough to just watch the screen. Like a lot of people, I have a laptop up, I have several windows open, I have live timing. I think live timing's a must. Anyone watch it without live timing?
Yes.
How?
What do
Okay,
How,
well, let's not have your wrong opinion. Joe and Cadence,
you get the gaps shown on the feed.
But you're missing so much about the stints.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, I feel like you see what's going on and you get most of the story, but there's so much that you're missing out on by not seeing how old everyone's tires are. Oh, is this person going on to a used set of tires? Are they going on to a fresh set of tires? What is their gap to this person? Maybe I'm not so good at math, so I need the numbers right there in front of me. Or even, mini sectors and everything.
You get the tire life, you get the compound, you get the, whether they're new or scrubbed or whatever.
I need to see it the second I want to see it.
Yeah, and the thing is, to me, that is the story unfolding. So a lot of times, I think people who don't see that miss how stints are evolving for a driver. So you can start to see like, the tyre wear go off. Or, like in the case of George Russell, you go, oh, he's probably pushing too hard. Like if you look at it, either that Mercedes now has the pace of the Red Bulls up ahead, or he's going far too fast and you're going to see him drop off a cliff. And you start to pick up those patterns. And I think you do get a lot from the timing tower. So a race like Miami or even Singapore, where it's a one stop, I think you can justify what you're saying, Chris. You see the timing tower, you see the gaps. It's not really that critical like it is in a 2 or 3 stop where you go, right, it's going to be life or death here, which drivers go off a cliff and what they're doing in that tyre save phase.
I at no point have I ever felt like I was lacking information from a Grand Prix broadcast. Oh, I really don't.
Then wait until you hear about 90s F1.
Oh god, yeah, no.
Where you wouldn't get information. Not only that, but the commentators didn't have any information.
No, yeah, that's true.
And would create a wonderful story. Murray Walker would create a wonderful story, and you'd have Mike Hunt on there just slagging everyone off, being fantastic and marvelous.
Do you mean that James Hunt?
What did I say? Oh my goodness, did
Mike
I really?
Hunt.
Did I say that? James Hunt.
Before he was Aston Martin TV, he was in the commentary box.
Okay, but did I at least say Mike clearly? Did I at least
yes, you did.
Right, okay,
yes, you
then
did.
we're safe.
It didn't sound like a Bart Simpson phone call.
We're okay. I thought you were going to clarify too much. So the saviour of that was actually Martin Brundle coming in, being much more analytical and really raised the game. And I don't think he gets enough credit for how much he changed F1 commentary with that level of experience and analytics and constantly going, no, Murray, that's the other car.
I think Martin Brundle, and I have told him this actually, first time I met him.
Oh, here we go. That's better than my name drop, isn't it?
I said to him, I don't think I would have learned as much about F1 as quickly as I did without you being on the BBC at the time.
And that's the norm now, because you have to have that in-the-know technical driver who's analysing it in real time. So the other great example is Jolyon Palmer, who you've got in there, and then Alex Brundle as well on F1 TV. So we've become spoiled on that. And then Sky can throw to Anthony Davison, who instantly is analysing it, on a pad and showing you stuff like that. So we do have more information because you've got the commentators to guide you through that timing tower. But I think, honestly, I do think you're missing a lot if you don't, at least a few races, just get into the live timings and watch the lap times as they appear and just pick your favourite driver. So, track your favourite driver or the ones you hate and have a look at how their stints are going, how consistent it is. So if you watch that and you look at a tyre saving phase or maybe at the end when they've got to get this set of tyres to the end, it's not they're going as fast as they can and it drops off a cliff. If you look at Hamilton and Verstappen, their lap times when they're in that mode are bullet precise and consistent all the way through.
Yeah, and sometimes even if you not even if you're just in the stage of learning more about F1, although this is very helpful in that stage as well, but kind of getting a spoiler for what might be happening later in the race. And it's also a great way to track driver development in a ways. Because I know, like, for example, Russell, his tire management up until very recently has been extremely poor.
But also, like you heard, was it the last Grand Prix where he was wanting to push and Hamilton was ahead of him? I think it was the last Grand Prix. And the team, you could hear the team just go like, no, don't do the thing you always do. Just chill. We're gonna be okay. But yeah, I mean, you could see that with Piastri as well. And the fun of it is you can then make predictions, and then you can kind of go, okay, we're going to a track with low tire wear or high tire wear. We can start to predict what we like. Who cares? You're going to enjoy it in any case. Look at Chris; he enjoys it. But I think it helps build this picture. And so, in a way, it is optional. But I would advise people try it and try the F1 live timing. But there's things that I don't do that other people swear by, like having the onboards available, multi-viewer. I have not tried any of those. Have anyone had any access to those?
Have for practice. I don't tend to do it for a race, which is bizarre. But I find that it's during a race, you don't need to get as much information directly from onboards, if that makes sense.
I'd have thought it was the opposite.
Yes, but for some reason I have found that it's just a little bit too much to keep track of at that point.
See, this is interesting because I think the Gen Z people, and this is a proven. No, Spanners. This is my sports marketing, experience
Stop
coming through
trying
here.
to divide us, the generations.
No, I'm
We're
not.
all one.
It has been proven that Gen Zs will watch sports with multiple tabs and multiple screens open, whether it's their phone or their laptop or something. They are definitely much more able, because they've grown up with the technology. They're able to watch a gripping drama while scrolling through TikTok and still know what's happening in the drama as well, which blows my mind, because when I watch something, I am full focused.
You're talking about second screening. And I'm 100% second screening here. So a huge
the
part
exception
of why I can... Shut up, you don't know what generation I am. I could look at my face. Look, not a single crack. Flawless. Probably I wear my socks down now that I've realised that's a giveaway when you pull your socks up. Or is it the other way around? I've forgotten. No, that's it. No, my ankle socks were giving me away apparently. So I've gone and bought all proper ones. So I've definitely got my communications tabs open. So I used to be very, very protective about my time. It was my time. Like I said, Daddy's watching the race. Daddy doesn't love you. Leave me alone. Crack it in. Get into my world. Whereas now, we're constantly on Twitter, arguing with people. Well, obviously, I throw out hot takes and infuriate Twitter. But I've also got the WhatsApp with you guys. We've got our Patreon Discord, patreon.com/MrApex, where we hang out, and that's such an interactive and lively and lovely forum. Worth signing up for Patreon alone, patreon.com/MrApex. So,
and how much is that?
Well, it just starts, at the $5 tier. We include all the benefits, which include an ad-free feed and also extra Patreon content. Patreon.com/MrApex. But that community is such an essential part of my race experience that even when Singapore was dire, I wasn't mad. A, because the racing's been pretty good this year, but also because getting involved in F1 communities online means you're watching it with the whole world. And we just didn't have that when we were kids.
And I think that is something that is so great about, F1 social media nowadays, is that you can have those connections during a race where it, like you said, doesn't matter if nothing's going on. Because once you've digested everything that has happened, the race replay 6 times, no one's overtaking, the tires aren't doing anything particularly exciting, there's no strategy, whatever, you can still have an F1 centric conversation about something sort of off topic, but still feel like you're having that F1 time on a Sunday.
Yeah, definitely community experience. And for all the ills of the modern world and for things changing when I wish they wouldn't, I do like that. Because like I said, I used to be very insular watching it by myself, and I still generally watch it by myself. Sometimes the family will come in for the start because my wife and daughter just want to see if there's a crash at the beginning, and when there isn't, they leave. And my son will sit there and he'll ask me Dad, why is that happening? Why are they doing this? What form is that? Who's that driver? And I'll go, you actually want to know about F1? If only there was some podcast where you could learn this stuff. He's like, oh yeah, but I don't want to listen to my dad on a podcast. It's me giving you the answer now. It's the same thing.
One of my favorite experiences is showing someone F1 for the first time. And so one of my sisters was her first Grand Prix was the 2018 German Grand Prix. And it was purely because she was cutting my hair.
Did you see qualifying or just the Grand Prix?
No, she just saw the Grand Prix.
So she didn't see.
Lewis had the engine failure or whatever it was in qualifying. That's why
rear brakes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, whatever it was. That's why he's starting 14th. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I reckon he's gonna win." And I'm like, "No, you fool! You nice and ambitious, but let me just give you some reasons why that's not gonna happen."
Summer child.
Yeah, exactly. And then he went and bloody won the thing.
Oh yeah, that was Sebastian Vettel as the rain came down and chucked it in
that
the
was
wall.
The death of Sebastian Vettel.
Oh my goodness. Well, no, not obviously figuratively, in case anyone wondered. He's happily alive in making bee hotels right now. But yeah, I don't know. When I'm introducing a new person to F1 and you have to explain it, you also have to prepare them for the fact that there are long periods of time where, quote unquote, nothing is happening.
It's really tough when someone gets into F1 through a very exciting race. I know a lot of people came in during 2021. My poor brother, his first race weekend was the 2021 Brazilian Grand Prix weekend.
Oh no!
He had this massive expectation
with the controversy of the rear wing and everything, and the comeback. Oh my goodness!
Exactly. So he had to go back and watch races to try and learn. Okay, this is why a quiet race may be exciting. There's still strategy going on, but you have to go and learn all of these things in order to really enjoy the sport most times.
So if you're new to F1 and you enjoy it and you think, I'm going to get into this, you go, okay, that's fine, but let's pause. You now have to watch the 1995 season or something like that and go, right, when you've ticked off enough cards, then you can... Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of fans who came in 2020, 2021, the popularity of F1 was through the roof in 2022. And a lot of content creators were building big audiences until the Verstappen dominance kind of started to pull away and seep away, and it was the Ferrari challenge disappeared, and loads of content creators at the end of 2022 and 2023 were like, figures are in the dirt, figures are going down, people are losing interest because they thought it was going to be 2021 every single season.
Yeah, that was the most number of times I jumped out of my chair watching F1 was that year.
Which one?
Doesn't happen to me often.
21.
Yeah, 2021. That was the most number of times. I can probably recount to you the moments where I jumped out of my chair.
I don't know. I still maintain the racing wasn't that good. They'd come together. You'd be waiting for the coming together and the racing action. They'd run off, or one of them would hit the other one. I don't think it was actually good racing. It was dramatic.
It was definitely the hits where I jumped out of my chair. So Silverstone, Monza, probably Brazil happened a couple of times.
Oh yeah,
and then
Austin.
The whole almost second half of the race that shall not be named. Avoid the comments, but that basically the entire from the last moments of Latifi to the very end of that Grand Prix. I didn't sit down.
Stop saying it. Right, before we go to some of the comments I got under this tweet, I think my last point about watching the race is I rarely watch it with other people.
Yeah.
Like outside of my family bubble. But when I do, it's so interesting to see how other people react. So you got people like me and Van Gien who are just screaming at the TV. I was sat there, I think it was 2014 Spa, and I think it was the first time I'd spent any time with my wife's grandfather. And do you remember Rosberg just stuck his little stupid wing in and gave Hamilton a puncher? And oh my goodness, I was going absolutely mad at the screen. And I looked at his face and he was in shock. And I'm like, oh, I didn't feel like I was even particularly losing it. That's just my F1 mode. When it comes to the overtakes, when it comes to those battles, I'm up out of my chair and I'm feeling it very intensely.
But I don't think we're more emotionally charged at the screen than an average football fan.
Oh, maybe not. Example. Yeah, maybe not.
I think for the first probably year I watched F1, I was very quiet. I was just taking everything in and slowly
before you
getting
picked
the ropes
tribe.
of everything. Well, exactly. And even then, I the sports I did growing up were very minimal on audience participation. I'll put it that way. Everyone was supposed to be very quiet. So by the time I got really settled into watching F1, it didn't take long before it was, I'm yelling at 6 o'clock in the morning. My poor mother is running in going, "Are you okay?"
Exactly. No, exactly. But
she did that back in 2021. I was, when Hamilton's brake magic happened.
Oh.
She asked if I was okay, and I said no.
You guys are bringing back too many horrible memories. Stop. Okay, let's make that the last 2021 mention of the episode.
So I don't want to mention 2021 again, but it's just when this happened. It was the Missed Apex Christmas party, remember? The qualifying for Jeddah was on for Max Verstappen, the lap that never was.
Oh, the best lap ever, where you hit the wall.
All of us in Brad's living room watching the qualifying session right at the end, and just the group reaction of Verstappen putting it in the wall, the shock, the screams, and Brad's television has this setting as well where depending on the loudness of the room, it adjusts the volume of the TV as well. So the TV got super loud because we were all screaming.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, let's go to some of the reactions here to the tweet I put out saying, what are your must-haves or superstitions? And Anne says, got to be there for lights out or it's not the same. And still, and I'm interested to see if you young'uns still have this. But for me, watching it in the 80s and 90s, the first lap, the first corner was often the race, like really often was the whole race. Do you guys still feel that same excitement for lights out?
I mean, I will often look at my, brother right before the race starts, when everyone's just getting, lined up on the grid, and I'll turn to him and I say, "Why am I nervous? Yeah. I'm not racing."
Yes, no.
But no. I get that, like, I'm about to compete. Nerves, like, they come back.
I do, yeah. I still get the butterflies. I think I've said this on the show before, but I think there is only one thing in sport that beats the anticipation of, like, between fifth light coming on and lights out, and that is a penalty shootout in a major football
maybe
tournament. I still get those butterflies. For me, it's a lean in moment. Like, I'll be sat on that very edge of the city, leaning as far forward as I possibly can.
I don't know how interesting this is, but it's not to the lights out themselves. There's a moment where the lights go out, you hear that something's happening, but you don't see anything happening. And that seems to take forever. And then the drag down to turn one, we start to see actually who's popping out, who's getting bogged down, who's actually getting a great start. I absolutely love all that. And that's before you even get down to turn one. And I am incredibly tense during those times. And you're absolutely right. Why am I nervous? I hadn't thought of it like that, but I absolutely am. And I'm trying to pick out, my favorite drivers through the back of the grid and everything as well. And thankfully, the TV's companies now do about 30 replays of it, so we get to feel that tingle all over again.
Well, I think you're reminded why you're nervous about it when you have races like Bahrain, when Roman had his massive shunt, and you realize that this is the most dangerous part of a Grand Prix. And once you've made it through that first half a lap, you can start to relax and sort of settle into it a little bit.
Ty says, I have to be half awake and quietly turning on the TV in the living room at 5 a.m. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, if you're having to consider people.
Well, when do you tune in, though? At what point?
That's because interesting. Me, that's an interesting question. Yeah, go on then.
Right, so we get the Sky broadcast here in the UK, right? I put it on in time for Martin's Grid Walk, which is usually about 25 minutes or so before lights out.
Chris, I can't watch it.
That to me is
Chris, I can't watch it.
No, I still enjoy it, and for me, it's a nice sort of warm up to get myself right. I feel like I need to stretch before going on a 5K. Do
you ever see a lion stretch? No,
I'm not a Lions fan.
No, you're not.
Definitely not.
I don't mind tuning in, only 10 to 5 minutes before the intro starts or something like that. But I need to be awake enough that I can spend another 15, 20 minutes making sure that there's no news. 20 minutes is a bit generous. Probably about 10 to 15.
Yeah, you don't want to be surprised by where's De Vries? Oh, he's been sacked. Okay.
Well, exactly. Or you wake up and all of a sudden, there's 3 people starting in the pit lane. I didn't know that because I didn't have time to, do the social media scroll.
Think where I fall down on tuning in like an hour before, which I used to do, is I'm impatient and I can't stand the tension, if I'm honest. This gives away like why am I such a nervous wreck about a race start that I'm not involved in? But yeah, the tension for an hour is too much now. I can't take the grid walk. I know the secondhand embarrassment has become a feature of it, and they almost go for it now and they feed it. But for me, I can't take it. If I'm watching Neighbours or a soap opera or something, and there's going to be an embarrassing situation, I have to walk out of the room. I can't pause it, and I can't skip by it. I have to walk out of the room, so I'm not involved in that. And it's just too long. And then they'll sometimes go, and now we did this feature climbing in the foothills of Mount Tibodago with Gasly, and I don't want to tune into all that. I know they've got to fill airtime, but not for me.
I was just by Mount Tibodago.
Really? In the foothills?
Tibidabo. I was hiking in the foothills of Mount Tibodago.
Oh, Chris, you've never seemed so attractive to me. Anyway, carry on. Cadence.
Half the audience.
I think that's something that a lot of like the main issue is with watching F1 in an unfavorable time zone, if you will, is that we never get that, or we very rarely get the opportunity to properly tune into the pre-show and all of that. So we are kind of, I am asleep, I am awake, I have a couple minutes of news, and then there's a race start, which probably also plays into the nerves.
Stuart says, I remember ITV doing a feature back in the early 2000s about a guy who always sat down for a full roast dinner for every race, and it emphasised that it really was every race. If it was the Australian Grand Prix at 6 a.m, he'd be up at 3 a.m. to start cooking his roast dinner. Let's see, who else have we got? We've got Warwick says to be uninterrupted, preferably a half a mile exclusion zone from friends and family. And some really great answers on there. Go and follow me at Spanners Ready to see some responses. And M had a great one there as well, which I've lost it. How do you find bookmarks? Why is everything so hard? I have my 2 TVs, my iPad, race on one TV, timing data on the other, and driver cams on the iPad with AirPods to get all the good radios. That's everything, isn't it? That's the meat feast of F1 viewing.
It's the full shebang. What that has reminded me, I have watched multiple races at the same time live.
It's not NFL. What are you doing?
No, it is. I'll have the F1 on one screen, and then maybe like a WEC race on my phone. And because endurance, you don't have to pay attention to every single second of it. So it's a nice little background thing. And I was just like, just keep an eye on what's going on there, and what's happening in the F1, what's happening in the WEC, what's happening in this. So.
No way.
That is the only other time that I'll do 2 proper screens. I typically won't do onboards and F1 at the same time, but I will do F1, and then if there's Formula E is on, I'll have that going. Or if there's I was gonna say the Rolex 24, but that is too early in the year typically. Or like if there is another endurance race on, then I will do 2 screens.
I'm disappointed in both of you that you would watch anything else when F1 is on. So I think I am disappointed actually. So no, when the F1 is on, that is my absolute sole focus. I might do social media, community groups all around F1. From start to finish, F1 is my world all the way until the end of the podium. So I was watching it with Matt, and they have the interviews. They go up to do the podium, and Matt goes to turn the TV off. And I just couldn't, I'm like, what are you doing? How can you not watch the podium? And he was so surprised. So Matt, like the race finishes, and he just turns it off like a psycho. How can you not watch the podium? That the podium is the end of the race.
Probably because in America, the podium, to watch the podium, you probably have to pay for like some premium, $15 a month to get
extra.
That
you have to tip them, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
And then get an Uber to the location where
they turn the iPad around and like, would you like to give a 5, 10 or 15%?
No, I don't know. And look, I know I'm an addict. I know that if it's 40 races a year, I'll watch 40 races a year. But please let me know. Like the podium is part of the race.
100%. Yes, I turn it off after the podium, and maybe sometimes I'll catch a couple of the post-race interviews on Sky. But Cadence, you brought up the Rolex 24. The best thing about that, because it's in January, you can watch every single second of it uninterrupted.
Exactly.
And you were
Roadster
trying
is
to come in before that,
fantastic.
Cadence. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say like about the podium is the same thing. That is the end, the mini end of race day, and then it's the post race interviews if they're on, if there was no delays and they're still being aired, awesome. But when the podium's done, then you can move about your day if you so choose.
I don't watch any of the post-race interviews or any of the analysis. Do you know why, Chris?
Because you've already decided in your head.
I've already decided in my head.
Yeah,
so,
I'm the same.
But I actively like taking that into the broadcast. So for the Ringer and for Missed Apex, and I even say to the guys, I don't want to debate once the race is finished. I don't want to debate any of the incidents anymore, especially if they're coming on the show. So no, we will argue about this on the show, and then I close my ears to anything else.
But sometimes I feel like I need to watch maybe 10 minutes of the post race. In the same way I need to warm up, I need to have a cool down, because otherwise I'm going to be like, what do I do now? I'm all like amped up after a Grand Prix.
Yeah.
It's like, no, now what?
Okay, we have run long. Cadence, sorry, this is the Missed Apex way to set a time limit and then forget about it.
I'm all good for a Missed Apex
waffle
time frame, hour, whenever that frame is.
You're okay there because we never go over an hour, ever. It's a hard and fast rule we've lived by for 10 years. So don't worry, we will stay 59 minutes, 59 seconds at the most.
That is sarcasm, by the way, Cadence. I know it's not hugely popular on that side of the pond.
Cover your ears, listeners. It's not true.
It's a good learning experience for me.
So firstly, before we go to our quick final subject, go and follow our new friend, Cadence. Where can people find you and describe the stuff you do on the vertical scrolls?
I am at Cadence Breaking on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. I am most active on Instagram, though. So that is where I will participate more in the community. And that's where the majority of everyone likes to chat amongst each other and stuff. I not produce, pardon me. I do a mix of content, doing a bit of discussion and community engagement, news, commentary, and then also a bit of fun bits as well, some jokes and things like that.
And if you don't understand why that might be the best F1 TikToker name, then you need a show like this in your life.
That could just be her given legal name, Cadence Breaking. It could be. You don't know. What I will say is it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of energy. So go and check out Cadence, and we will stick some show notes, some links in the show notes below. So this is going to be quick. Whistle stop. I want to know everybody's must-watch races, and if you had to miss races, which ones would you miss? So let's go with you, Chris. In the F1 calendar, what's the race where you go, I have to watch that one?
Right, 100% British Grand Prix.
100%, damn right.
I will never miss that. It's one of those ones where even if I'm away, I'm not going to forget to record it, and I will watch it when I get back on Monday.
It's just the best track, though. It's the best track. It's the greatest racing. It's the brilliant atmosphere. It's the only one where Lewis Hamilton actually says best fans. If you listen carefully, Hamilton always says great fans. Shout out to the fans here. The fans here have been amazing. Only in Silverstone does he say best fans, because that's the only thing that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wonderful news about European Le Mans Series going back there as well. So if you can't afford the Grand Prix tickets, there is a much more affordable race weekend out there.
We're being quite Eurocentric, so I just want to check. Does Silverstone mean anything to people outside of Britain?
I have one F1 fan that is not a member of my family, so right. I would not be able to have a great gauge there. I personally love it, though.
No, yeah, good. We'll take it.
That's what we needed. You get to stay.
Chris.
Fabulous.
Right. Red Bull Ring. Usually a cracker.
It's good, isn't it? Do you know Red Bull Ring and Vegas have a lot of things in common? The way the racing is well. You don't like it. You don't like me saying that.
The thing, right? We'll get onto when we get onto the ones you have to miss. I'll justify that. So I will. I'll just run through the other ones real quick. Bahrain.
Oh yeah, no, great track,
brilliant track. Yeah. Usually a great barometer for how good the season's going to be, as well. China, now that that's back, very happy because it's a cracking racetrack and usually gets some drama. Monza as well, I think is amazing. Love that. Usually get some drama there. No, not meh.
Oh, well, next season, I mean, it's our home next season, isn't it? So are you not all Lewis fans converting? Any Lewis fans converting to Ferrari with me? next season.
I'm learning the Italian national
I
anthem.
know, it's going to be so cool. So no, Monza though, it's never been one of my ones where I go, oh, that.
I love it. Absolutely adore it. You get great races there. And this year was another example of that. And then my last one is Brazil. And I think what you'll find they all have in common, I mean, Bahrain and China are the newest ones on there, but they're like proper and big. And, you know, there's no street circuits on there. No. They are proper facilities with great layouts.
Cadence, must watch on your calendar.
I'd say I share most of Chris's there, which is probably not a fantastic answer. So some other additions I would have is Coda. I love Coda. I think it's it doesn't always throw up the best race, but I think it's a bit of an underrated track still.
What I like about Coda is how bumpy it is. And even like a boring qualifying lap is made to look more dramatic because it's like it's skating.
Don't
and it's
they resurface that like every 5 minutes? Is it built on a swamp
but it
or
gets
something?
used. It gets used so much.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And turn one at Coda is up there in like all-time great turn ones in F1 as well. China
definitely
is probably
invites
the
a bit
top.
of chaos.
Yeah. So I think I agree. I don't think I've got any different ones. I think I might be on my own on this one, but Hungaroring is a big one for me, especially if there's some weather. Just for turns 1 and turn 2 are spectacular. I love them.
I'd say definitely with you on Hungaroring there, and Spa. You have to put Spa in there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Spa's been a little bit of a disappointment lately because they've changed their weather over there, haven't they, recently?
But do you know what? It's not the track's fault. It's a sort of byproduct of the regulations where everyone tends to take their engine penalties there, and so you get this really disjointed Grand Prix. This year's was a corker, but when you get a year where 6 people take an engine penalty and then 3 of them are out by turn 1 because La Source is not really a great place to start a Grand Prix, it kind of ruins it a little bit. So through no fault of the track, you tend to get sort of hit and misses there.
I'm going to go for Le Com, which is as one of the most underrated corners in F1. That's a bit niche. But so you go through Eau Rouge, up over Radion and down the Kemmel Straight. The corner at the end of that, the way you can't just slam the brakes on. So I think that there's a lot of dragging of the brakes, so the braking zone gets elongated, and you always get quite a bit of action in there, only ruined by the fact that people can bail out and run off the chicane. It's got the normal chicane. It's not a chicane, but it has chicane-like characteristics, but I still think it's a great corner.
Probably 90% of F1 corners have that, run straight over problem. Now, what's great about it is that it is still a really short braking zone because it's uphill and it's quite a fast corner still. So I think they're braking only just before the 50. But what's great about it is you can go on the inside, you can go around the outside, you get the high ground for the left-hander, or you can try and stick it out and get the line for Malmedy. You get great racing there, always.
That's why Silverstone is great. So tracks where you can get multiple corners going, where you can get racing through multiple corners. I think Bahrain, you get that there as well. There's a lot of the street circuits, you get your opportunity and that's it. You're not going to be racing side by side.
So the beauty of Silverstone is that from the first braking zone at turn 3 into Village, all the way through to the entrance of Maggots and Beckett's, you can have side by side through there,
and you do get it through Racing Series as well, up and down the calendar.
And I think that this obviously is a little bit different than just watching it on TV. But if you were at the British Grand Prix, there wouldn't be a bad seat in the house that way, because you're always seeing something. There's always the opportunity to see something happen.
Perfect for when Formula E goes there next year, isn't it?
Is it? Formula E's going?
That's apparently we're not going to have it. Oh wait, no, not next year. Next year is still London, but after that, their plan is to move it to Silverstone.
What's layout? The national layout must be.
God knows, mate.
They're not doing the full layout. They're not doing the full layout in Formula E. Okay.
Who knows? Maybe the new cars can handle it. But...
Okay, you have to miss 3 Grand Prix. Who's got it in their head? The 3 that they'd miss. I mean, I can go. I can go first. I think it's pretty Monaco, Singapore. Oh, actually, the third one's a little bit more challenging. What would it would be Abu Dhabi, I think, if it wasn't the season finale. But I'll go for those 3.
No, I think it's a weak season. Okay, do you know, I'm ready for this.
Let's go.
Okay, I'm going to start off. Any destination Grand Prix.
What, including Miami?
This includes Miami.
Oh, no.
This includes Vegas. right? Any Grand Prix where they're more concerned about the scenery than the race.
Where they have to zoom out to fit the globe in.
Exactly, right? Where the race is full of like, hey, look at where we are. Oh, isn't this cool? We're in the middle of Vegas, and look, Miami's over there. Look, there's the stadium and all that.
Is Azerbaijan a destination race? I think it might be. They were trying to make it like that. Do you remember? Do they still have all the fake buildings? I haven't really been paying in Baku.
I haven't been.
Well, if they have taken them down, then well done, Baku.
Well done, Baku. Yes,
Cadence,
exactly.
Name your three.
Okay, I might be a bit unpopular here when I say Imola, but I love the track. It's a beautiful track, but
it's not a good event,
we can't get any racing there, I can't take any more.
That's not unfair, but you are going to get emails, so just direct them to her TikTok, please.
Exactly, email me.
I fully agree with it. It's not suitable for F1, I think. When you get other series there, it's the bomb.
It's a great track. It's a great track.
Facility wise, awful. No one likes it. No one likes going there. No one likes going to Monza.
Same as Monza. So maybe that's an Italian track thing.
Maybe. I mean, there are a lot of tracks. Zandvoort is not fit to host Grand Prix racing, modern Grand Prix racing. Brilliant track, and it's nice that you can get there on public transport and everything, but just the physical space available to everyone is not sufficient.
So that was your first one?
Yeah, I'd say the second one would be Miami as well. I think it's very unnecessary. And, it sounds bad, but,
I have sympathy, but when I went there, I went, this is brilliant. This is the greatest Grand Prix on earth.
Who is paying you to say that?
Hey, I am very bribable, but I do tell you if I'm being bribed. It's a shame because you go there and it's actually one of the best circuits to go to.
And see, the whole atmosphere and the facilities look great. But as far as racing from at home, it doesn't do much for me.
Can I just say, why has no one said Mexico?
That's interesting.
What do you mean interesting?
Because
it's terrible.
It's unfortunately laid out, and I just think the stadium kills any racing. I don't know as well. If you put that track at sea level, I think it's okay. So I don't know how much you want to blame it for being high.
Well, yeah, okay. If it would be at sea level, you wouldn't have all these overheating issues and nobody being physically capable of running close to one another. But the stadium it kills it.
So the stadium, that final chicane, guarantees no overtakes into turn one. And that's the biggest issue, I think, with Mexico.
Yeah, sadly, Mexico, the atmosphere is incredible. I love that Perez has such a great presence there, and his home race is so electric. That's amazing. But yeah, the racing there is just not pleasant.
If they had a better run into turn one, that first section isn't bad for racing. So the race starts there are pretty interesting. The tell Charlie I said hello from Vettel. You actually get pretty decent racing through turn 1, 2, 3 at the start, but then they just get so strung out that it kills it dead. I don't have the same animosity to that as, say, a street circuit or your destination circuits like Singapore, where it's just the concept of it is what leads to the bad racing, and F1 almost culturally doesn't care because it makes up for it by it being all pretty, look at the shiny lights, as you said, Chris, destination. Whereas Mexico is a genuine attempt to, and like with Imola as well, there's genuine attempts to be a good racetrack, and maybe both of them suffer from it being modern F1. If we plant them in the 80s, maybe it's a little bit better. Anyway, that was a fantastic little midweek meetup. Thank you for joining me. Sorry that we did, in fact, use the whole hour, Cadence. Go and follow Cadence on all the links on the show notes below, and follow Chris Stevens. It's Chris on Racing.
Yes. So I'm going to mention this because I don't know when my next appearance on Missed Apex is going to be. I have 3 more commentaries to do for this year. One of them I am going to plug. It is a super intense championship finale in the International GT Open at Monza on the 20th of October. Top 2 in the championship are level on points. We have an outsider in 3rd position in the standings as well. 2.5 hour endurance race at Monza. if you get the time. And it's the US Grand Prix weekend as well, so the Grand Prix is not even going to be on until the evening. So
no excuses.
Tune in to the GT Open and get yourself warmed up.
Do it. Go and follow Chris at Chris on Racing. Links will be there. Obviously, follow me. I'm the best one. At Spanners Ready. Posting more on Instagram, having fun over there. Posting, I don't know. I'm getting more into it. You tell me if I'm doing it right or not. And our TikTok, I'm using it more to, as things prop up on the news, react to it and go, here's what I reckon about stuff. And so the recent one is me reacting to F1, describing Oscar Piastri's season so far as flawless. I have opinions about that. Support us at Missed Apex Podcast on Patreon, patreon.com/Missed Apex. And until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast.